Hello, live again. Okay, let's have a look.
Hey everyone, it's JVL here with Tim Miller of the Bulwark, and our friends in Canada caused some trouble the other day. The government of Ontario ran an ad during a baseball game in which they used audio of President Ronald Reagan talking about why tariffs were a bad idea and why fake patriots like to claim that they bring prosperity, but they don't. They actually kill jobs and slow down economies. Tim, let's start out by listening to the ad.
Would love to.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation.
Isn't it kind of wild how Reagan sounds like a Democrat in this? Like, this is just how, different things are now and how weird things are now.
By foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens.
I mean, for real, just let that sink in. Let that thought sink in.
Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
So we've had some fallout since then, Tim. First of all, the President of the United States cut off all trade negotiations with Canada. As a result, he didn't like this.
Seems kind of dramatic.
Doesn't like seeing things
on
TV. Now, keep in mind, it wasn't the government of Canada that ran the ad. It was the government of Ontario. So I guess he thinks the Prime Minister of Canada should have the power to prevent the head of the Ontario government from running ads. Is that how free speech works?
Yes. I think yes. He thinks that, or he's not really sure. Ontario.
He doesn't really care.
Ottawa, so maybe it was the capital, and maybe it was actually Canada. I don't think that he's. My guess is he probably didn't take the time to really concern himself with the particulars.
Yeah. But what I want to dig into is an intra-conservative question here, because we then had the Reagan Foundation rush out and...
what was this about? Why did they sort of come out and say that Reagan didn't say what he said when it's pretty clear that is what he said?
Here's what they said. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute learned that the government of Ontario, Canada created an ad campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan delivering his radio address to the nation on free.
By the way, it wasn't selective. I listened to the whole thing. I listened to the whole speech years and years ago, and now they're saying it's fake. It doesn't make any sense. We really do live in a weird Kafka-esque style, just fairy tale land. It's so strange.
Fair Trade, dated April 25, 1987. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address, and the government of Ontario did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks.
Well, they didn't have to receive permission. It's public. It was a public broadcast. Everyone's allowed to use it. That's the nature of it being public.
The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this matter. So, the Reagan Foundation's position seems to be that the government of Ontario can't use words that the Ronald Reagan said.
Yes, they can.
That's interesting. There's a couple words in there that caught my ear. Selective and misrepresented.
Yes.
Because they don't... I read that statement, and then I read it the second time. Now you just read it to me, so I've heard it 3 times. And I'm still trying to figure out which exact...
Yeah, I feel the same way, Tim. When I read that, I paused and I thought, okay, I know the speech. I know the speech inside and out. Listened to it multiple times over the years. I'm not sure what they mean by selective. Are they suggesting that Ronald Reagan was a protectionist? and he wasn't in favor of free trade. He wasn't in favor of expanding markets. Is that kind of what they're trying to suggest right now? Because it sounds like that's what they're trying to suggest, in which case they are quite literally rewriting history.
What was the misrepresentation exactly?
Yes.
And I can't quite figure that out. The selective, I guess, is the only answer to that, which is that they chose just a portion of a longer radio address.
True.
And so that to me just does bring something to mind, which is the 60 minutes law.
Yes, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right, which is that, like,
How dare
now, yeah, the new standard in the Trump administration now is, I guess, if you're going to use audio or video of something that a politician said, you must use the entirety of that video, or else you might be liable to lawsuit. And you must use the entirety of that video unless you're liable to lawsuit, in particular if the video is something that Donald Trump doesn't like or he thinks hurts him, right?
Only if Donald Trump.
Yeah, pretty much.
So 60 Minutes, had to use the entirety of the Kamala Harris interview because Donald Trump was under the impression it was bad, and so it's kind of convoluted still why Barry Weiss's new boss settled with him, but like I guess that in some way that he felt damaged by that. In this case,
It was the old boss that settled.
See, this is the thing I don't understand. I mean, it's no mystery to like people who understand that Donald Trump is not Ronald Reagan. They're not. They don't share the same philosophy. They don't have the same view of the world. They don't have the same level of integrity or mission or anything like that. I mean, Ronald Reagan, for his faults, at least had an idea of how he wanted the world to be, and Trump's idea for how he wants the world to be is just how can I empower myself. But what I don't understand is why he took such offense to it, because his attitude should be, well, yeah, Reagan's gone, it's my time now, and this is what we're doing that's different. Or turn around and argue that Reagan was the cause of the problems that we see today. I mean, Reagan and Thatcher were the ones who pushed for more open markets, who pushed for more capitalism and free trade. Isn't that kind of the antithesis of what Donald Trump's trying to do? At least that's what he argues, unless he doesn't actually know what he wants.
The old boss
right.
that
Yeah,
settled.
well, no,
But-
Barry. Oh, well, I guess still there. Yeah. I guess that is true. There's some overlap, I would say. Come in. There hasn't been.
We all know why it happened.
Renunciation.
We all know why it happened.
Yeah. Okay. Good flag though. We want to be accurate. And so that is, I guess, true here, where the Ronald Reagan Library wanted Ontario, and you're only allowed to do 60-second ads on TV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
True.
the problem, isn't it?
And so I guess they wanted them to air the entire radio address.
Something like that. So here's what's interesting. If you go and listen to the actual full address, there's nothing misleading. It turns out that Ronald Reagan was against tariffs, and he thought
Well, that's pretty well known.
They did create economic harm. But here's what's interesting to me. There are three dynamics happening here. The first is that the Reagan Presidential Foundation intuits that the way to protect Reagan's legacy is to somehow represent as if Reagan would agree with Trump today.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And you say intuits. I just want to throw out there possibly that it was asked,
Also possible.
because it was a pretty quick succession. The Reagan Institute, whatever it is, put out the statement, and then Trump put out the bleat.
Yes.
So that could have been a coincidence, but there also could have been,
Coinky-dinks
the
happen
game
all the
could have
time.
been worked behind the scenes. But
Yeah.
yes, either.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I really don't. I legitimately think that there was a collusion there, shall we say, so to speak.
Either way, they either intuited it or told that they should make sure to ensure that Reagan's legacy was in line with whatever Trump would want today.
All right. So interesting aspect number two. Ronald Reagan seems to be the only U.S. president that Trump is not comfortable saying is a sucker and a loser. Because
Well,
if this
that's because of how much he was like revered by the Republican Party, and many Republicans still feel that way. So he's not prepared to take that step, even though philosophically and economically, it would make complete sense for him to say that. Like, why wouldn't he say that, given the fact he doesn't believe the things that Ronald Reagan believes? I mean, am I wrong? If I'm wrong, then tell me, but I don't think I'm wrong.
This had been a clip of George W. Bush talking about tariffs, or Barack Obama, or George H.W. Bush. I imagine Trump would have said, yeah, that's right. That's what those suckers and losers thought. And they were wrong.
That's a good observation. Yeah, I do
feels
wonder.
like he needs to
Kennedy,
genuflect.
maybe? He has a Kennedy thing a little bit?
Maybe.
I don't
But
know.
he feels the need to genuflect before Reagan,
Yeah.
which
Why?
is interesting. Well, which brings us to the third part, which is that his running mate, J.D. Vance, is a critic of zombie Reaganism, right? Like there's a whole move. The entire idea of MAGA is that this zombie Reaganism, we got to get over it. It's stupid and it's wrong.
Yeah.
And we got to do something different. We got to do command state nationalism.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what he
you
argues.
see like the weird like triangle of tension here. Like it doesn't add up. And I don't understand it. But I do think they probably understand something about their base and their voters here.
Maybe they do. It's interesting. As usual, you're making me think about this a little differently. So I'm kind of doing this live fire, GVL. But I am again falling back on, I think this is an op. Like, and I think that it's like the thing that comes to mind for me is that the most.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that, like, supposedly the Canadian trade deal is at a pivotal point, and Trump has, shall we say, a massive reputation for last minute throwing spanners into the works so that he can attempt to kind of leverage a bit more out of the deal. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what this is so that he can kind of sort of, mess things up a bit. Then when things are corrected, claim victory, and then move forward. It's kind of his way of getting an extra slap in before he closes the door. I wouldn't be surprised if it's that as well. I mean, but, this is Trump. Personally, I think this entire thing will be over and done with, and everyone will be shaking hands and talking about how amazing they are all within a few days' time. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's just how I see things.
Likely scenario here is not that there is like they're thinking that deeply, and I guess there's like this instinctive question of why does he care about Ronald Reagan? Like
True.
that is something that we should maybe get back to. But to me, like I think maybe this is not really part of an ideological project or the internizing Republican feuds, and what's most likely is that Trump saw the ad. Or that somebody saw the ad, right?
Yeah.
Like Doug Ford pushed back and said that they're watching it. They're going to re-air it tonight on the baseball playoffs. I'm sure just like our friends Sarah Longwell and the Republican Accountability Project and Lincoln Project and others have done the thing where they run the ads and, on the Golf Network at Mar-a-Lago. So like maybe it's that. Like Trump saw the ad and he just doesn't like, and it's more of like it's less about Reagan, more about Canada. He's like, these fucking Canadians are not going to come down here into my country and show me up during my sports. Okay. I'm half watching the golf tournament or the baseball playoffs. I don't actually know any of the players. There's a Japanese guy playing now, I understand, but I don't really know the details. But
Many of those Japanese types.
Yeah, but I did hear my name, and someone pointed my attention to this, and it's the Canadians. And the Canadians, and it's a megalomania. The Canadians need to bow down to me. Like the Canadians should not be doing this, and so I'm going to give them the.
Yeah, it's like I was saying. It's a demand for. It's annoying, and when I see people on like X talking about how this is exactly what I voted for, I'm a little bit like, really, this is what you voted for? A president who's so petty that if he sees a commercial like sort of quoting Reagan, he gets annoyed.
What for? And we're gonna, and like, who are the Reagan? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I see this developing. I don't know really per se, but I do think it's probably more about an interpersonal like power dynamic that Trump feels like.
Okay, I need help developing this. I don't know if you can see that, because I'm currently trying to make a better thumbnail for when I'm just kind of generically streaming, and I've used the same picture on practically everything, and I'm getting bored of it. I need something different.
Canadians need to genuflect to him.
I really need something
different.
different.
About Reagan. But you do make a good point. The counterfactual that if this was a Bush ad, I don't think it plays out like this. And
No, of course
I
it
don't
doesn't.
really know. That part is harder to discern.
And an interesting tell about the Reagan Foundation people is that they don't try to retcon history. They just want to sort of wave their hands and make it look like it's fake news.
Be right back.
Instead of, well, I'm sure what Trump would have preferred would be for them to have said, actually, Ronald Reagan appreciated the judicious use of tariffs, but they can't quite say that. I mean, I guess they could, right? That's the thing. If we were going full Stalin, like full death of Stalin, full, airbrushing everything out, then that the Reagan Foundation's position would now be, Ronald Reagan was totally against free trade.
Yeah, I think this goes to, so I had a little anecdote.
I mean, is that the goal, really? Is that what the Reagan Foundation was actually trying to do? Make the argument that actually, no, Reagan was pro-protectionism and liked tariffs and wasn't a fan of free trade? I mean, is that the argument they're trying to push? If it is, I mean, that is like rewriting history on a colossal scale. I mean, that is literally asking us all to think that a square is circle, which is, I mean, it's effed up, in a word, you know? I mean, Thatcherism and Reaganism were predicated on the idea of, removing, state power, taking the state, taking unions, breaking these things down and allowing the market to run freely. That was their entire philosophical argument.
Total experience.
Which is the opposite to Trump's argument. Trump's argument's more in line with, I guess it is a form of sort of quasi-socialism, I suppose.
Recently, and I'm going to have to anonymize it because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I was speaking to a group that was like a old legacy conservative thing, right? But like, it's college-educated establishment people.
I know the type.
Okay, yeah, and so many of the people that staffed and worked it are board people and wanted me to come speak and liked it. Some of the trustees, they're still they don't love all the particulars about the Trump thing. And one of the elder statesmen or whatever of the group got mad at me during the thing and started kind of lashing out about how I was being down talking too much, and they began talking by saying I get it, you might find Trump uncouth, or you might not like this, or you might not like that, but
bear in mind, I think it was 2015. Have a look if you can. I'll see if I can find it. We'll pause this. I'll see if I can find it. It was a reaction to what was it now? I think it was this. Oop. Was it this?
Had to evacuate our embassy in Yemen. But how can we expect the president to destroy the Islamic radicals when he can't even figure out how to dunk a cookie into...
Okay, yeah, it's not quite that. I'll find it.
We are in a organization right now that represents conservative values, and so you can't be going after the Republican president. I felt like a little bit of that out of these Reagan Foundation people, where it's probably an older set of people that have decided that they have to make do with Trump for whatever reason because of donors.
Well, long story short, basically, Obama in 2015 was in the Oval Office with a selfie stick taking selfies, and Fox News lost their minds saying about how this is undignified. A president of the United States should not behave like this. Could you imagine Reagan behaving like this? It was a whole shtick. And as I was watching, I sort of paused and thought to myself, hang on a minute, hello? Are we seeing what things are like today? What's going on here?
Their own interests, and it's just in these situations, Like they make the determination that like the people coming after them are worse than Trump, right? You know, and so like they need to lash out and say, "Oh no, it's these liberals up there in Canada that are trying to co-opt Reagan's legacy," right? It's like Reagan's legacy won't be co-opted by liberal Canadians. You know, we must slap that down. And so it's more of like this kind of weird positioning, like, oh, I have to like be defensive of my side.
Well, it's partisanship over ideology, right? Because I mean, the reality is that on the biggest things, and the biggest things are economics and foreign policy.
True.
The ideas of Reagan, to the extent that they still have a home in American politics now, really live in the main body of the Democratic Party. And not in everything, but just in terms of like the idea of the importance of NATO, robust American leadership in the world, free trade. And
America is a place that we want people to come and live a good life and succeed here. And this was his farewell address, was about
I don't want to overstate it, right?
Yeah,
I want to like
a lot of areas where there's disagreements, but like those core.
Right. But the Reagan Foundation people seem to believe that actually that Reagan was a Republican first and an ideologue second. And so it is impossible that his ideas could live in another party. And we got to...
It's the laundry. It's the old Jerry Seinfeld thing about
rooting for the clothes.
With the baseball team. We're rooting for the laundry. And Reagan and the people of the Reagan Foundation have to root for the people with their laundry on, no matter how far afield they get of his actual policy views on things such as trade. I think that's right.
Yeah, so that's why I differ massively. I couldn't do that. I really couldn't bring myself to do that. I couldn't be a party political person. I mean, there are, well, scratch that. I scratched that. I mean, in politics, you have to pick a side at some point, but they could have just decided to say nothing and gone, yeah, we're not getting involved in this, but they didn't. So, hey ho.
Laundry, just a really quick aside.
Yeah.
His outfit in that radio address, unbelievable. I mean, that green and black checkered shirt.
Ooh.
Wow. I mean, that's a man who just knew how to look right behind.
I know it's AI generated, but Warhammer Theorist, I like this. I really do like this channel. I fall asleep listening to these. It's pure like schlock, but I like it.
And the Oval Office desk, casual yet presidential. No orange makeup. I noticed there. No clown makeup. It doesn't look like. Maybe, some light gentlemanly TV makeup.
Did you ever go out to Rancho Cielo?
Have I been to Rancho? Is that where the Reagan Library is in California?
Let's see what else
not the library, but that's his ranch. So
let's pause that for now. What have we got here? Oh, I like this clip.
You must bring an end to this. They attack our temples.
Now they dare to desecrate Zeus's image.
We could reach out to them.
An accommodation could be made. A truce.
Now!
It's actually crazy to think this was 15 years ago. But 2010. This was 3 years before I moved to London.
I created them, and they reward my love with defiance? There will be no truce. Finally, some rage from you. How long has it been? How long, brother, since you've seen my face? Hades. Endless years I've watched from the underworld and saw your wrath tempered with love. You created them for one reason, so their prayers would fuel our immortality. But you love them too well. They've grown strong, and now I am forced to rise because we are all threatened.
What do you want, brother?
Let me loose upon them. They will pray again, and you will bathe in their awe and fear, and we will grow strong again.
He belongs in the underworld, not here.
You do not tell me where I belong.
Luke Evans, back before he was the main guy. What happened to Luke Evans, actually?
You say it is love that feeds us, but you depend on their love. I've only learned to live on their fear, their pain.
Zeus, our brother speaks the truth. Hear him.
Anyway.
Trump just pardoned.
Actually, what was he talking about today? He was talking about some, like, messed up... Here we go.
It's 2008 all over again for gamers. If you didn't know, one of the biggest digital economies just crashed almost 50% to $3 billion from an all-time high of about $6 billion. This is all because of a recent patch. You can see this line here just in free fall. We still don't know how bad the damage is. Penguin Zero 20 hours ago saying $1 billion in market cap was lost. 9 hours ago, Atrioc made a video that says $2 billion is lost, and I'm making a video where $3 billion has been wiped out. So it's...
I mean, just so I understand this, because I was watching this a little bit earlier on, it's like basically people were buying sort of digital skins for weapons on the marketplace and massively cranked it up. And now, what, Valve changed the policy, which meant the prices crashed? Is that basically, I understanding this right?
Anyone's guess as to where it goes from here. But what we're talking about today is Counter-Strike 2, a popular shooter game where you have in-game cosmetics which have different levels of rarity. We covered all of this in a long 3-part series on my main channel where we exposed the underage gambling problem in Counter-Strike, but suffice to say, because of the in-game rarity, people have taken to speculating on the value of these items, and some of the rarest, knives and gloves, were going for tens of thousands of dollars. But that all changed basically a couple days ago when Counter-Strike issued an update where you could basically trade up for knives. Here you can see it right here. You could trade 5 of your covert items for 1 regular knife or 1 regular gloves items, completely changing the entire sort of digital economy they had going on, the supply and demand of everything. And because of that, the entire economy crashed, but it also kind of had a reorganizing effect. Some items are down, let's see here, 96% in the last 24 hours. Some items are up 3,000% because if you had those items you could trade up for a knife, all of a sudden those are more valuable because you can use those more worthless items. Now this primarily affected the whales the most, the collectors, the people who...
It still absolutely stuns me, and I mean genuinely stuns me, that people were buying and investing in skins for game weapons, like digital weapons, as an investment. I get the basic principle of supply and demand, where if you have very rare things that everyone wants, then naturally they will be bid up, so the price will go up. But fundamentally, we're talking about, like, this isn't a cash flowing business. You know what I mean? It's a very limited market and a very specific thing. So if you went all in on this, like, yo, you've got some... You really have to think hard.
Had thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in these digital skins. You can see here this guy has $60,000 in virtual currency, basically, and he's about to recalculate, what it is after the update. And you're going to see how devastating this update was for some people.
$58K, okay? Now...
Almost 60 grand this guy had in this. 60 grand?
We make a shake. Let's see, guys. 58K.
Okay, he is way too calm, given what's about... Right there. Way too calm for this.
To what? 58K. Ah!
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he lost basically $40,000 in the space of one CS2 update, which ironically was called a small update. Now look, there's a lot you can say here. I think one of the biggest things is that obviously this illustrates the weakness of these speculative markets where someone controls the supply of your collectible item. This is always...
Well, yeah, that's the second thing too. We're talking about a computer game. We're not talking about a regulated market here. You know, if they want to change the policy, they can do it, and there's not a damn thing anyone can do to change it. So that's like you're really setting yourself up to fail.
Always the biggest risk as a collector of any kind of item with no real value, maybe speculative value. You can think like Pokemon cards, other collectibles like that. At the end of the day, you can always have the parent company just release a bunch more of their rarer items and change the supply for everyone. So it's really not a good...
Right, here's where I heard about this. Okay, here we go. Steve Eisman was on the Lemonade stand, and they were asking this guy about what his investments were, and he was talking about, sort of, they're a young Gen Z, super risky, and at some point they talk about this.
Unironically,
this is actually something he has in his
massive
portfolio.
Investment. The next two.
He put his real money...
Guns!
No, not even guns. No.
Yes, I'm an arms dealer.
No, not even guns. These are digital skins that go on video game guns. So when you're playing a video game, you might have a more brightly colored gun than your friend.
Yeah.
Because you bought this skin.
But here's the key.
You
On
your
video. On the video.
On the screen. How much money did you spend on this?
Oh, God. No, please don't. Please don't tell me it was a lot. I remember it was a lot of money. I remember wincing and thinking to myself, like, okay, I hope you're going to be good, dude. I hope you're not freaking the fuck out right now. I really do. I mean, this podcast is doing real goddamn well, 201,000 subscribers, so I'm pretty sure you're fine. But still, like, oof.
This knife. Your knife.
That knife was about $14,000.
$14,000.
14 grand for a knife skin. Not talking about like an actual knife that's exotic and made out of gold or platinum or silver or whatever. We're talking about a skin for a game. Now, don't get me wrong. I've worked in the game industry. I'm an animator professionally. I get it. I understand it. I have investments in crypto, but wow.
Exist.
Sorry, I'm burping like crazy right now.
Did you not realize that? It's not real.
No, I'll have you know, a friend of mine bought me a real life replica of it for about $20 that he gave to me. So it's like...
Right, okay. Let's get back to
idea
this.
to probably put a ton of your net worth into these items. I also want to say specifically with Counter-Strike, one of the things we highlighted in our series is just how little the company listens to its community. I mean, let's be clear. Valve is good at some things. Steam is, for the most part, a really good product. The problem is they don't listen to their community hardly at all. They're sort of known for not caring what their community thinks once they make a decision. This even goes to the highest level of Valve. In the third video in my 3-part series, I showed a clip of Gabe talking about how much power people at Valve have over these giant economies and how really no one's looking over their shoulder.
People at Valve have to get used to working without a safety net. Yeah. There's nothing between you and a customer. You can do something. You can come in that morning, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you have a million customers, right? And they're all emailing you. They're all me emailing you. And you probably should fix it, right? But nobody's looking over your shoulder. And for some people, that's liberating. For some people, it's terrifying.
So yeah, this is an open secret of Valve's style of operating. And the other thing worth noting is that it's not universally hated as an update. Some of the players who like to actually play the game, some of them are now happy that knives have fallen in price.
Well, I guess that's the fundamental point. I mean, Valve... Okay, well, I'm taking Valve's side on this. Valve's job isn't to create a marketplace in which players grow wealth. Their job is to create a game people enjoy and want to play. And so if them doing this has meant that more people can now actually access things and enjoy the game, then that's kind of what they're supposed to do. I mean, if you're gonna buy if you're gonna buy something, be it an asset, be it something that's rare, whatever, if your goal is I'm gonna buy this thing as an investment, you kind of have to make sure you do your due diligence beforehand. I mean, I have quite a risky sort of stock portfolio, but I at least understand what I'm buying. So when I see it, I understand that like there's a risk involved. The ones that aren't producing cash right now, I know why. I know the catalysts I'm looking for. I feel the company will be able to achieve it in X amount of time. So I'm comfortable taking the risk. I'd never stake, what was it, 14 grand? 14 grand in what is basically a texture file. And just to be clear what we're talking about here, we're not talking about like a cash flow business or gold where there's effort made. We're talking about a texture file. If Valve wanted to, they could suddenly go, okay, we're going to make this like every single knife has this texture and there's F all you can do about it. Like, why would you take that risk? I don't understand it. You know what? Maybe I'm becoming a boomer. I mean, I am a millennial. Maybe I've just hit that point in life. Maybe I just don't understand, you know?
You know, understandably so. Maybe they were priced out of the market. And of course, people are also happy if you have a bunch of items that people can just trade up. But I think it illustrates that this market was always and is always going to be a speculative one, where people need to realize that these items have no real value other than what someone else will pay for it. And so if you're buying these skins for any other reason than you just enjoy how it looks, you're gonna be at risk of Valve basically rugging you. They completely control the supply of this market, and there's nothing you can really do about it if you're gonna be one of these collectors who's hoping that their portfolio of knives goes up in value. You can just have all of it kind of disappear one day. And I think this is pretty well illustrated by one of actually our interviews on the CS2 Gamba videos. Arrow, he was basically out in the middle of nowhere when this update dropped, and you can see sort of his reaction kind of sums up how big of a deal this whole thing is.
What happened?
Did you not say that you can trade reds for knives now?
You can trade up reds?
Oh, brother, you need to run home. Brother, reds are
Bro,
going...
I haven't had internet for like 6 hours. Or 7.
Brother, reds are going for 16 times the amount.
There's no way this is true.
Brother, I'm not getting...
I have to be getting trolled. I can't even open up Steam.
It literally is gaming's 2008. I mean, people were all calling each other saying, check your inventory, you gotta sell, you gotta buy. Some people are finding out that they've lost half of their value overnight. And all of this reminds me of one of the early stories of how crypto started. Vitalik Buterin, who is the founder of Ethereum, of course, part of his origin story was that World of Warcraft changed some of the rules and his warlock character got less powerful, and it was such a nightmare moment for him. He realized how devastating it is to have centralized characters in charge of your, video game or whatever. Now, I have seen people say, oh, that's why crypto would have fixed this, like crypto is the answer.
Well, no, it's not, because someone still controls the crypto. You know? What people are trying to look for ultimately is a completely risk-free asset. But that doesn't exist, because if any investment by nature carries risk, the only thing that's truly risk-free is guaranteed, and guaranteed. There is no such thing as a guaranteed return. Risk is required. Risk is essential. The risk of what you own being debased, the risk of what you own being worthless, the risk of what you own collapsing, the risk of what you own not being the thing you expected it to be. That's what investing and trading is. Yeah, I mean, it's no different from crypto than anything else.
Kind of not, though, too, because a lot...
And the problem with people argue about crypto, especially crypto being like becoming a replacement currency for, say, the dollar, that the whole point of currency isn't that it's an investable asset. That's not what the point of a currency is. The point of a currency is as much as possible, it's a relatively stable method of exchange. That's the whole point of it, is that you're supposed to be able to spend it. If you want to save it, then you put it into different things. Then you can invest, and then you can invest in Bitcoin, you invest in Ethereum, invest in stocks, invest in bonds, property, you name it. But the whole point of currency is that it's supposed to just be a liquid method of exchange. That's all it is,
A lot of the crypto games that I've seen come out, the people in charge of the rarity items and stuff can still have minting authority over new updates, new changes. NFT projects, you're always risking that they're going to release a new collection. So, I've seen that argument that, crypto would have solved this. I don't really think so, actually. Ironically, I think this is just what happens when a speculative market gets huge and ultimately the guys in charge decide to change the rules all of a sudden. I mean, that's just always going to be a risk you have. So devastating for the market. I mean, literally down 49% from the all-time high. Billions of dollars wiped out, and I feel bad for the people who had a bunch, invested in this. I do want to say, as silly as this whole story is, or it seems to be with, it's just this online economy, some people were seriously affected by this to the point where reportedly, and this is unconfirmed, but that some people even, jumped off buildings because of this. In China, they actually have one of the biggest skin.
Okay, I'm not saying this to be funny. Why did I know if it's related to investments? If it's related to highly speculative investments in computer games of a digital space, why is it always China? It's always China. I think it's because they've got nothing else to invest in. I think that's part of the problem, if I'm honest with you.
Trading markets with the marketplace buffed up.
Like, you can't really invest in their stock market. Their real estate market's a joke. I mean, they overbuilt everything to the point where it's just a mess. Actually, we'll pause this one here. There's something else I want to watch.
The companies at the center of the AI boom have been busy investing billions of dollars in each other. I'm sure you've seen the spaghetti diagrams in the
I have not seen that, actually.
Media recently, showing how companies like OpenAI are investing in their chip suppliers, or how chip manufacturers like Nvidia are investing in their customers, enabling them to buy more chips. I first noticed how strange these deals were back in March, when CoreWeave, a company who buys chips from Nvidia, puts them in data centers and rents out compute, filed to go public. Its IPO prospectus revealed that Nvidia owned about 5% of the company. When investor interest seemed tepid after a long IPO drought, Nvidia offered to anchor the deal at $40 a share with a $250 million order. Bryce Elder described the deal in the FT at the time as an Ouroboros, an ancient symbol of a snake or a dragon eating its own tail. A similar metaphor might be an extension cord plugged into itself. If you don't know much about electricity, that might look like a perpetual energy machine. But trust me, I've tried it out, and no matter how you configure it, it won't power your home appliances. You just need outside energy to get things going. That, roughly speaking, is the current state of AI infrastructure financing. While the sheer number and...
Hang on, let's have a look at that. What have we got? Select capital flows among 6 AI industry companies. Chip purchases, infrastructure purchases, and rentals. Yeah. Chip purchases. So lots of people are buying from Oracle. Oracle's buying a lot of infrastructure from OpenAI. I mean, let's be very clear. You've got a small handful of companies who are capable of delivering and generating what's needed, and so they're all basically going to be, circle jerking each other. That's just kind of how things work. I'm currently asking... Ooh! I'm currently asking ChatGPT to come up with a concept for me. Because I want to get a better I'm streaming thing, thumbnail. And that's actually pretty cool. I don't know if you've seen this. That's pretty cool. I like that. It doesn't look anything like my desk, but I like it. I should probably take a picture of my desk thinking about it. Give me a second. Let's just do that now. Okay, bear with me. Okay, let's carry on. Damn it. There we go.
State of AI infrastructure financing. While the sheer number and size of these deals have convinced some investors that the AI value chain is developing rapidly, others are concerned by the circularity. Two companies sit near the center of nearly every diagram: OpenAI and NVIDIA. Each is likely trying to ensure that everyone in the ecosystem, from suppliers to customers to cloud providers, has a vested interest in their success. OpenAI recently announced a $300 billion cloud infrastructure agreement with Oracle, a $10 billion custom chip partnership with Broadcom, and strategic alliances with major memory suppliers. According to UBS analysts, OpenAI's memory commitments alone account for half of the world's current capacity. NVIDIA, meanwhile, pledged up to $100 billion in investment to OpenAI, who will in turn buy millions of NVIDIA's AI graphics cards. AMD is also in on the game. OpenAI agreed to buy tens of billions of dollars worth of AMD chips, and in return, AMD gave OpenAI the right to buy 10% of its stock.
Which is insane. Just to put it in perspective, it is insane. I'll be right back. I'm going to get another beer. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Once again, happy Friday.
For 1 cent per share, contingent on AMD hitting certain share price targets and OpenAI deploying its chips.
Yeah, but that was basically the idea behind the... I mean, it's crazy, quite frankly. I don't think it's going to be possible. I mean, they bought the shares for so cheap. The amount they would have to deliver on for AMD's price to get up to for it to be worth it is nuts. But I guess it's kind of like, give it a shot type deal is the vibe I kind of took away from it.
The way Matt Levine explained the deal at the time was that if OpenAI announces a big partnership with a public company, that company's stock price goes up. So OpenAI could just pay for the chips in cash, receive stock, and when the deal is announced, the stock would rocket, effectively reimbursing OpenAI for its purchase. Everyone wins. Amazon has its own version.
Okay, how is that not stock manipulation? I mean, it's a genuine question. It's like, I'll buy your stock. I'll buy 10% of your stock. Once we announce it, the price will go up, and then we basically make our money, and the deal can kind of go through that way. How is that not stock manipulation?
Of the loop.
Because they didn't have the cash.
Invested more than $8 billion in Anthropic, the company behind the Claude chatbot, and in return, Anthropic committed to using Amazon as its primary cloud provider. That means training and running its models on Amazon's custom AI chips, renting compute from AWS, and integrating Claude into Amazon Bedrock, the company's enterprise AI platform. In effect, Amazon is funding a company that will use its chips, run on its cloud, and help sell its services. And now Google is getting in the loop too. Anthropic just announced a deal to access up to 1 million of...
It's a giant AI circle jerk. That's basically what's going on. In a nutshell, that is what's going on. And quite frankly, I'm not being funny. The entire North American, well, the United States, the entire American stock market has been held up by this. If you take spending on this out, the rest of the stock market is even flat. The rest of the stock market, get my words right, is either flat or declining. So be careful where you put your money, is what I'm saying to this. I mean, hey, look, listen, if it pays off, it's going to pay off big. I mean, let's make no mistake here. I mean, they're using their own cash. They're not borrowing massive amounts. And so if the payoff works, it's going to be incredibly impressive. Make no mistake of it. But so far, there is no payoff. We're still waiting. It's still early days. I mean, look, I'm invested in AI companies. I just am. So,
Google's TPUs. bringing over a gigawatt of compute capacity online by 2026. The arrangement is worth tens of billions of dollars and positions Google as both a major investor and infrastructure provider.
Thank you very
Anthropic
much.
says it chose Google's chips for their efficiency and performance, but the deal also reduces its reliance on Nvidia and Amazon. Google has already invested $3 billion in Anthropic. Amazon has pledged $8 billion. Both companies now provide cloud services, custom chips, and strategic capital. Anthropic insists that it's just pursuing a multi-cloud strategy, but it's hard to ignore how deeply entangled it has become with all three of the largest US cloud providers, each of whom now has a financial interest in its success. Then there's Elon Musk, who seems to believe that the best way to build artificial general intelligence is to have his companies date each other.
Yeah, I can believe that.
His AI startup, XAI, acquired Twitter, or the Everything app, which supplies real-time data to Grok, his chatbot, sometimes referred to as Mecha Hitler. Tesla, his electric car company, uses the chatbot in its cars and possibly its robots, which are coming next year. Musk owns a majority stake in XAI, which recently bought Twitter from him. He owns a minority stake in Tesla and now wants Tesla shareholders to invest in XAI. It's not incestuous exactly, but we'd have to get Errol Musk to explain why it's okay.
Elon Musk's dad accused of abusing his children, including stepdaughter he has a kid with. Oh my God.
The whole thing is starting to look less like a tech boom and more like a Mobius strip made of venture capital and electricity.
That's a colourful way of putting it, for sure.
And the electricity part isn't a metaphor either. Before we dig into that, let me tell you about this week's video sponsor, Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal information from hundreds of data broker websites where it's being sold online. Data brokers are businesses who collect information on individuals to sell. Some of the worst ones are people search sites that collect personally identifiable information. This is sold often as cheaply as a penny per record online and can be used by scammers, stalkers, and identity thieves. You have the right to protect your privacy by asking them to delete your data, but there are hundreds of data brokers and they make it hard to get off their lists. I used Delete Me, who were recently named the #1 data removal service by Wirecutter, to reach out to hundreds of data brokers to request the deletion of my personal data and to deal with any objections.
Why can't
Delete
chat
Me
get this
even
thing
have
right?
privacy advisors who are real people who can take on custom requests. With a yearly subscription, Delete Me makes sure that data brokers don't re-add your data to their lists. Remove your personal information from the web using the QR code or the link in the description, and use the code BOIL for 20% off. McKinsey forecasts $5.2 trillion in capex for chips, data centers, and energy over the next 5 years alone. Bain says that we'll need to see $2 trillion in annual revenue from AI companies just to justify that spending. OpenAI has about $13 billion in revenues today and is essentially a money furnace. Anthropic is...
Yep, this burns it up. Makes no money. It's a nice company, though. I will say that much. Oh, my God.
A smaller money furnace. Nvidia is very profitable, but not $100 billion profitable. So the question becomes, who's going to pay for all of this?
Yeah, put quite simply, everyone right now is relying on the hope that future earnings will be colossal. And they're not right now.
The interconnected nature of these deals, the reason we need spaghetti diagrams to understand them, has raised concerns about circular financing. Companies are investing in each other, buying each other's products, and pushing up each other's stock prices. Investors are now asking whether these interdependencies could pose risks if AI demand or monetization falls short of investor expectations. The AI industry's investment structure is starting to resemble something we've seen before, just not in Silicon Valley. In post-war Japan, large industrial groups known as kiritsu were built, usually around banks and trading houses, with companies taking stakes in each other and coordinating supply chains. South Korea's chaebol system followed a similar pattern, but with families in control rather than banks. These models weren't about competition. They were, at least initially, about survival in capital-constrained economies. It seemed to make sense to have tight financial relationships with the businesses you relied upon so that your supply chains were secure. The kiritsu and chaebol models were often criticized for obscuring financial risk, misallocating capital, and propping up uncompetitive firms. When Japan's asset bubble burst in the 1990s, the tangled web of cross-holdings made it almost impossible to unwind bad bets. Today's AI giants are by no means...
Right, okay, I think I'm getting a bit closer with the whole chat thing. I mean, that kind of has a nice vibe to it now. The one there, that's what my desk actually looks like. That's my real desk. That's what I'm trying to go for.
Short on capital, but they are assembling these webs of mutual dependence. The question is whether today's AI giants are building a similarly fragile structure which looks stable from the outside but depends on a constant influx of new capital to keep the lights on. When we look at the numbers, they almost seem made up. OpenAI's Stargate project, announced this January at a White House event, is a $500 billion plan to build 10 gigawatts of AI data center capacity across the US. It's firstly kind of crazy that we're talking about data centers in terms of gigawatts. According to the US Department of Energy website, a typical nuclear power plant produces 1 gigawatt of power on average, and that's
so many nuclear power plants. Part of the reason, I'll be honest with you, why I'm invested in nuclear energy, but that's another thing for another time.
Enough electricity to power 1 million typical US households. The typical US household is 2.6 people, so 10 gigawatts is enough power for 26 million average Americans. OpenAI isn't just building Stargate. The Financial Times pointed out that the 6 gigawatt deal announced with AMD is enough energy to power Singapore for a year. But there are other deals too. All in, OpenAI has committed to building 23 gigawatts of new data center capacity, which they say will cost well over $1 trillion to develop, and it seems would require 23 nuclear power stations to power up. In Texas, where several Stargate sites are planned, electricity demand is rising so quickly that some operators are installing on-site gas turbines and exploring nuclear partnerships to avoid waiting for grid hookups. The XAI data center in...
Whoa. So doesn't this basically mean that going forward, the cost of electricity in the United States is going to skyrocket? I mean, that's massively inflationary, no? It must be.
South Memphis is running gas turbines with no emissions controls and no permits, creating enough pollution that, according to Politico, the area surrounding it leads Tennessee in asthma hospitalizations. There's not just one or two of these firms. All of the big tech firms in the United States and a bunch of additional firms in China and elsewhere are building out AI capability. So, as I mentioned earlier, McKinsey now estimates that $5.2 trillion in capex will be needed by 2030 just to build the data centers required for the projected AI workloads. On top of that, data centers powering traditional IT applications are expected to require $1.5 trillion in capital expenditures, meaning that we're talking about almost $7 trillion in projected data center spending over the next 5 years. The firms are not generating sufficient revenues to justify that spending and don't appear to have a path to profitability planned out yet. For a technology that was supposed to make scientific breakthroughs, cure diseases, and maybe even replace human cognition, a surprising amount of AI output looks like slop. And
It's true. It's true. Although, in all fairness, though, when it comes to things like medical and engineering and stuff, they typically have their own more specialized AI systems. They're not just using ChatGPT. So let's not. I get it. I do understand the argument, but let's be clear on that at least.
Sometimes worse. OpenAI's Sora can generate realistic video, but the most viral clips so far have been deepfakes of Taylor Swift and SpongeBob as a character in Breaking Bad.
Yo, Sponge, this stuff looks extra crystalline, like restaurant quality.
Then there's Elon Musk's
That's fantastic. Oh, God.
XAI, which has built an anime girlfriend chatbot, which many feel is an improvement over the Hitler one, which should hopefully keep basement dwellers occupied for the foreseeable future. There's also a cartoony red panda version, if that's what you're into. As easy as it is to make fun of this, there are many less widely discussed breakthroughs. The 2024 Nobel Prize for Chemistry went to 2 Google DeepMind researchers for their pioneering work on AI-powered protein folding, which promises to expedite
AI-powered
drug
what,
discovery
sorry?
and development and is already being used to combat cancers and other diseases. A number of my viewers think of me as being anti-tech and anti-AI, as I've made fun of many of the more ridiculous claims out of Silicon Valley. And there are a lot of them to keep up with, like the Hyperloop, the Metaverse, AI-enhanced water bottles, the general usefulness of the blockchain, and passing off short-term office rentals with free beer as a tech business. There are plenty of uses for AI which don't involve generating slop, but people do seem to love slop. OpenAI is not profitable. It's spending much more money than it brings in revenue and is doing so at a
It's not just a little bit, it's colossal sums more, to be clear. Vast amounts of sums more. Because you've yet to actually have a proper financial use case. People like the tool. I love the tool. I think the tool is great. But it's not all that on a bag of chips, as they say in England.
Pace that would give most CFOs post-traumatic stress disorder. To fund its infrastructure build-out, the company has secured a $4 billion revolving credit line from a consortium of banks. This is very unusual. Historically, high-growth tech firms raised capital through equity, especially if they were burning cash, as lenders like to see predictable earnings.
So basically, Sam doesn't want to sell parts of his company. That's the vibe I'm taking away from that one.
The shift from equity to debt and from public listing to private investment is happening across the sector, where data center providers are borrowing against assets like racks of GPUs, which might quickly become obsolete. This creates a strange dynamic. The companies building the infrastructure are borrowing to serve customers who are also borrowing or being subsidized by their investors. The whole system appears to be leveraged on optimism. For now, the money is flowing, and for users, as I argued,
well, for now, there's still a story behind it. That's kind of the point. As soon as the story vanishes, well, like anything else, you'll see a massive correction. The question is, just because you have a massive correction, I mean, what was it? Amazon went from like $100 to like $2 during the crash. It's now worth vastly more than that. So just because you get a crash doesn't necessarily mean you've got a problem. Nice. Okay, playing.
In my blitzscaling video from a few years ago, it probably makes sense to make the most of these expensive AI tools that we're currently getting for free. It's not clear how long that can last for, though, or who'll be left holding the bag if AI providers can't flip to profitability. The GPU rental market is already showing early signs of stress, and the build-out is only getting going. According to FT Alphaville, the price to rent NVIDIA's B200 chip has dropped from $3.20 an hour to $2.80 per hour in just a few months. Older chips like the A100 are now available for as little as 40 cents per hour. That's below break-even for many operators, even under ideal conditions. They calculate in the article that a cluster of 8 chips, which would have cost around $200,000 5 years ago and has a 5-year useful life, would need to have generated about $4 an hour in rental fees just to break even. Back in 2020, the average rental price for an A100 was $2.40 an hour. That's now fallen to around $1.65 per hour, and to make it worse, the average is being skewed by hyperscalers.
Well, hang on a minute. Can a GPU as a service company break even to a typical customer? Maybe, maybe not. Here's a very simple model. One entry-level GPU AI cluster cost to release in 2020 based on the approximately 100%. Okay.
Who are continuing to charge more than $4 when their competitors go as low as 40 cents. If demand for all of this infrastructure doesn't materialize, it could become stranded.
Well, that's the concern. That's the massive, massive concern and a massive, massive problem. It's not that like right now there isn't a story and people aren't investing in it. The problem right now is that what happens when the story doesn't materialize in the actual numbers. You know, if there comes a point where we're looking at, like, you know, OpenAI and ChatGPT, and it's like, okay, we've spent, you know, $500 billion on this and it's delivering not a lot, that's going to be a problem. Like, we're expecting colossal margins from this, colossal returns, huge amounts of money, like, you know, god level amounts of money, and we're just not there yet, and we probably won't be there for several years, so we'll wait and see.
Data centers built for 5 years of peak usage might sit half empty. The FTP suggests that many pandemic-era GPUs will end up in liquidation, never having earned back their cost. There is a precedent to this. Telecom firms in the early 2000s built out fiber optic networks that were never used. Railways in the 19th century similarly laid track to nowhere, much of which was later removed. The AI industry is now laying down gigawatts of compute, betting that someone will not just show up to use it, but actually pay to use it. If they don't, the fallout won't be limited to a few startups. It'll hit lenders, landlords, and the public utilities that signed up to support the boom without necessarily understanding the bet that they were making. NVIDIA's stock market valuation is based on the idea that demand for its chips is massive and will keep rising, not just this year, but for the foreseeable future. The question we have to ask is how much of that demand is real and how much is driven by NVIDIA's investments in other companies. OpenAI is buying and renting billions of dollars worth of NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA is investing in OpenAI. CoreWeave rents NVIDIA chips to OpenAI, and NVIDIA owns a stake in CoreWeave. The same dollars are circulating through the system, possibly inflating purchase orders and revenue projections. It's hard to tell where the demand ends and the subsidy begins. The circularity makes it difficult to assess.
Whoa.
The quality of revenues. And that's why there are so many people asking if we're in an AI bubble.
Well, yes, because you're buying from me, they're buying from them, they're buying from them, he's buying from her, he's buying from this. But like, where is like the outside customer feeding into this? That's the idea. You've basically just got a mass, an absolute mass of incredibly wealthy, powerful companies all spending huge sums of their own money to build these systems up, to build up these data centers. But that doesn't mean that the end result is going to be something profitable.
If NVIDIA's biggest...
I think it will be. I do think it will be. I mean, the thing about AI is it doesn't have to be, well, here's the messed up thing. It doesn't have to be profitable within itself, but it can make you more productive, which does make you more profitable. Does that make sense? Like, you don't have to make money here. You can be more productive here and make more money there. I guess that's the kind of the way I think of it, that deal.
Customers are also its investment targets, and those customers are using NVIDIA's money to buy NVIDIA's products, then the margins may not be quite what they seem. There's also the question of how well this infrastructure is being used. OpenAI claims to have 700 million weekly users, but only 5% are paying customers. Most of the revenue in the sector comes from enterprise contracts, not individual subscriptions. And even among business users, the success rate of AI pilot projects is low. McKinsey puts it at less than 15%. We're not seeing the mass AI-driven layoffs that many were predicting a few years ago. Labor data shows no clear relationship between AI deployment and trends in employment, other than for freelance graphic designers and copywriters who have seen sharp declines since the arrival of ChatGPT, and some junior coding jobs which have been in decline. Not long ago, the complaint was that American companies were no longer investing. They were hoarding cash or using it to buy back stock and just avoiding risk. Now the complaint is that they're investing too much and possibly in the wrong things. The circular deals are big, but they're not overwhelmingly so. The OpenAI NVIDIA deal, as an example, should account for around 13% of NVIDIA's expected 2026 revenue, according to UBS. And that's assuming the full gigawatt deployment goes ahead. That would mean $50 to $60 billion in total capital investment, with NVIDIA receiving $35 billion of it back. NVIDIA says that it might reinvest $10 billion into OpenAI, but only if monetization keeps pace. That's a performance-based approach, which is smart and gives plenty of room to back out. The financial health of the big players is solid too. The mega-cap US tech firms are expected to...
Okay, bored of it now. Bored. I love this clip.
Nothing you see here is for sale, Mr.
I have to go for a pee. Be right back. Okay, back. Sacred. Right, Arthur? Sacred. It's true. You take a wager, you take a gamble, you take a bet in front of people, you better be willing to... I think we're getting somewhere with it. That's kind of the design I'm going for. ish. Let's see how we keep going.
Well,
what's Sam ranting and raving about now?
The specifics always you get things wrong, but I think the general view is held up well. Remember, these were products of the 1990s. The Coming Anarchy was published in 1994 as an essay. It came out in book form in 1996. That was the heart of the mid-1990s when the policy elite at famous posh conferences in Davos and elsewhere were predicting a world of liberal humanism. They predicted that Africa, Asia, every place would just follow Eastern Europe into democracy and good governance. And
it failed in a spectacular fashion. Bill Maher. Oh, Michael Steele, I like him. Okay, after this, we'll watch that.
Is traveling around Africa, the Middle East, and other places, and I said, that's not true at all. These places have different histories. They're at a different time in their development.
I will say that was the failure of Davos, in the sense that they just assumed that the rest of the world would, like, not fall into line, that's the wrong way of putting it, but would I'd become more like us, if you want to phrase it that way.
And they're not just following what happened with the collapse of a number of regimes in former communist Eastern Europe. So, I saw a totally different world than the policy elites at the time. And I actually followed it up with another Atlantic essay called Was Democracy Just a Moment?
Yeah.
Which came out in 1997. Again, this is the 1990s when the whole policy elite bought into the notion that history was over, that there were going to be no more wars. We can just concentrate on stabilizing human rights, etc. And I had a different image. So I would say that my overall prognosis of the world has held up extremely well. I wrote about anarchy in Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, but those were models for what would later happen in Libya, Syria, Iraq, many other places, Burma, then called Burma, now Myanmar, etc. So I think generally it's held up well.
And obviously, you wrote certainly the article "Coming Anarchy" in '94 before virtually anyone was on the internet, right? I forget what year we all got on, 96 or something, and also, but obviously before social media and smartphones, and the implications of this technology knitting the world together for good.
Photoshop time, I think. Paste. God damn it. Thumbnails. Test.
For ill and largely for ill is of relevance in your new book, Wasteland, because you focus more there on the way in which the shrinkage of the information landscape and also just of geography. I mean, the connection of every place to every other by air travel has just changed the dynamics of everything, and the institutions fraying in one part of the world affect the institutions elsewhere. But before we jump into the new book, do you still view the environmental focus you had 30 years ago as fairly central, or is it a second order concern?
No, it's fairly central, Sam. Because at the time, I said in The Coming Anarchy, the essay, the 1994 essay, that the environment, the natural environment, would eventually constitute the number one security issue of the 21st century. Of course, now it goes under a different name, climate change. It used to be global warming. But what we're really talking about is populations in the developing world that have not stabilized and gone down like in the West, but are still climbing. Meanwhile, there's less and less water to drink and for agriculture. There's less and less nutrients in the soil in many of these countries, which again puts more pressure on food production. So that and this leads to migration. It leads from the rural areas, which can no longer sustain agriculture, into the cities, which can no longer sustain these bulging populations. So consequently, people live in slums and shanty towns. And this goes uncovered still in the media to a significant extent because they're off our radar screen. So to speak. We don't realize that most of Africa now is urban. It's not National Geographic photo rural. It's mostly urban, and therefore these places are harder to govern, harder to satisfy, because urban populations require complex infrastructure that rural populations don't. So I would say that the natural environment writ large, connecting with a lot of other factors, is still fairly central.
Yeah, the demographic details you cite in the book around urbanization and just population growth in Africa especially are pretty alarming. I mean, if memory serves, it's something like 80, you're forecasting that 85% of humanity will be living in these vast megacities.
Not that high. I forget the exact figure, but look at it this way. At the beginning of the 21st century, our century now, there was one African for every one European. At the end of the 21st century, there's going to be 7 Africans for every European. Europe is only separated from Africa by the Mediterranean Sea, which is fairly narrow in global terms. So we're going to have a decades ahead of more and more migration as many of these people in sub-Saharan Africa become middle class, and in the first generation of middle class, they leave, they migrate for better opportunities elsewhere. So that this steady migration from not only Africa, from the Middle East, is going to fuel European populism for decades to come.
Well, I want to jump into that. I want to talk about the specific fates of Europe and America.
Yeah, that's super important. I mean, the reality is that there has to be a relationship between Europe and Africa, whether the Europeans want it or not. That's just a horrible reality for a lot of the more populist and, shall we say, nativist Europeans.
And Russia and China and many of these places you focus on. But let's talk about the central analogy you draw in your book to the Weimar Republic. It's been pretty common, you're probably all too common and somewhat misleading for people to analogize between America under Trump and Weimar. That seems to sharpen up the concern about authoritarianism, perhaps to too fine a point. But you draw a global analogy. You're describing what you call a global Weimar. What do you maybe remind people just what Weimar was and what lessons we draw from it and why you think this is a good analogy for.
Right. I'm not interested in Hitler per se. When people say Weimar, they think that it ended with Hitler. It did, but that's not what concerns me with this analogy in this book. Weimar is a town in central Germany where at the end of World War I in 1918, German constitutionalists, lawyers, politicians all met to draw up a new constitution. Now, Germany had just lost World War I, millions of deaths, and Kaiser Wilhelm II turned out to be a disastrous autocrat. Even Bismarck, from the late 19th century ruler of Germany, was looked down upon. And the rulers of Weimar, the people who gathered at Weimar, were determined never to have another autocrat rule Germany. So what they did was, and we all do this in our lives periodically, they overlearned the lesson. They made not only it so hard for another autocrat to emerge, they made it hard to govern the place in the first place. So that there was constant crises, constantly weak government.
Okay, honest question. I'm trying to use AI and then I'm soon going to jump to Photoshop, but what do people think of this? I mean, it's very schlock. I get it. It's very AI schlock. I understand. I'm just playing around. That's kind of me. Computer games, digital media, and finance. That's kind of my vibe. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Weak governments, weak cabinets. Nobody was in control. And because nobody was in control, it led eventually to a super autocrat, to Hitler. But for me, the world today is like the 15 years of Weimar between 1918 and 1933. Why do I make an analogy between the world and Weimar? Weimar was so small, the world is so big, because technology has shrunk geography. It's not only the internet, social media, it's air travel, it's the unity of financial markets. We're all close to each other now. We're all anxious. We all inhabit an anxious, claustrophobic world like Weimar was. And it's not going to lead to another Hitler. I say that up front very clearly. But what it would lead to is like a permanent crisis, permanent paralysis, so to speak. That the days when the world had some coherence during the bipolar Cold War and unipolar American leadership in the immediate aftermath of the Cold War, those days are over. Now we live in a global Weimar where we're close enough to affect each other.
What's this all about?
I've been waiting almost 13 years for someone to ask that question. I often thought I would die here, alone of age or starvation or violence, never having had the chance to reply. Do you know the words memento mori?
No.
It's Latin. Ironically, it's a dead language. It means remember death. Remember you must die. Dead. Infected and non-infected alike. Because they are alike.
So the guy basically built a massive temple to all the dead people he found. And to get to the bones, he had to basically boil the bodies. And just think of that.
Every skull is a set of thoughts. These sockets saw, and these jaws. spoke and swallowed. This is a monument to them. A temple.
I want you to try and always remember that. I understand. You're alright, you're alright. I want you to try and always remember that. I understand.
Memento mori. What did it mean?
Remember, we must die.
And it's true. There are many kinds of death. And some are better than others. The best are peaceful, where we leave each other in love. You love your mother.
I love her.
And Lila, you love Spike.
So much.
Memento amoris. Remember, you must love. Isla, come.
Stay here with the baby. Love you, Spike.
Does he kill her? Is it like a sort of like a mercy killing? Yo, this is powerful stuff, man. I'm getting emotional. Oy. Oh no, he does not come back with her head. You are out of your mind.
Spike. Find a place for her. Best one of all.
I mean, oy, that is... Oof. There's a beauty. There's definitely a beauty and a darkness to that at the same time. Like, that is both beautiful and traumatic. Oof. Yo. Jesus. Yeah, shit, be right.
I think it's time for you and the baby to go home.
That's
Huh.
So, did Butt Boy ask you out?
This is like a really old film at this point. This is like, yeah, about to say, this is about 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Not yet.
Think of that, 16 years ago. 16. That's like me being at university. I graduated in 2006. This coming out in 1990. That's like old.
We're taking things slow, getting to know each other first. Why am I talking to you about this?
In other words, he didn't actually ask you out.
Just to put it in perspective.
What are you doing?
Hi, this is Abby Richter calling for Dr. Anderson. Yes, I'll hold. What are you doing? Shh, are you calling? Shh. No. Shh.
Dr. Anderson.
Hi, Colin. This is Abby. Your neighbor from last night.
Hey, everything okay? How's the ankle treating you?
Couldn't be better. I was just calling to let you know how much I enjoyed meeting you last night.
Thanks.
And I was thinking we should go out for dinner sometime.
Oh.
There is a new French bistro in town and an art opening that got amazing reviews. So I was thinking we could go on Friday.
Friday. Wow.
Would Saturday be better?
Actually, Abby, the thing is, I haven't really settled in yet.
What the hell are you doing?
I'm saving you. He was blowing you off.
He wasn't blowing me off.
He'll be expecting you to call him. And when you don't, he'll call back.
How do you know?
Because I know how men operate. If you want it to work out with this guy, then you'll listen to me and you'll do exactly as I say.
Okay, you know what? I'm thinking at this point I'm going to call it a night, truth be told. So, take care. Catch you all later. Be good, be safe, and be kind. Bye.